You already know what time it is. I got some B-Class Touge for you today. This time I've pulled out my purest build BMW M3 1988, still rocking the rear wheel drive, and I'm up against a Nissan Skyline 1997. Of course they come stock all wheel drive. My opponent starts with the advantage, but the lucky thing about having this car rear wheel drive is it left me with a little bit of extra performance points to upgrade my brakes. So as we come down to the first hairpin, we have our first production test of these race brakes. I get on the brakes about a full car length ahead of the Skyline, but I do overshoot slightly. Luckily for me, ghosting is turned off and there is no way around for him. So while we make our way to our next bit of action with our opponent, let me tell you why I decided to pull out the rear wheel drive. Now, I saw some of them elitist comments. Y'all know who y'all are, and this is not to prove y'all wrong. Y'all actually had a point. I all-wheel drive swap just about everything I drive. We'll get back to that point in just a second. As we approach the double left-hand sweeper, I'm gonna get on my brakes and try to cut inside, but I'm still not quite used to how the rear wheel drive handles, so I slide out a little bit. And what you'll notice there is my opponent had every opportunity to rear end the ever-loving crap out of me. And he didn't. He actually locked his brakes up and went around me. So that's right, I'm bringing you a beautiful battle today, because I wouldn't be doing the community any favors by only highlighting all the bad stuff I come across. Now in the next braking zone, my opponent locks the brakes up and gets a little loose on the rear end, giving me just enough space on the inside to squeeze my car through. Those were some of the thinnest margins you could get away with in this game. Anything more than that would have been me pushing him off the road. So from here we're going to drive onto the finish line. So I'm going to get back to the point I was making earlier about the rear wheel drive cars and how I always swap all my cars to all-wheel drive. It occurred to me that, in my opinion, that's really freaking boring. I spent all of Forza Horizon 4 all-wheel drive swapping all of my vehicles. And I went into Forza Horizon 5 doing the same thing, and I got bored with it so fast. And I do not intend to repeat that cycle in Japan. So I chose the BMW as my first rear-wheel drive build because it's pretty much the first vehicle I pick in any new sim racing game I play. It's basically my chosen starter car to introduce me to the physics of a new sim racing game. And in Forza Horizon 6, it will be my starter car introducing me to the physics of building, tuning, and racing rear-wheel drive vehicles. But we're done talking about my car. We took home first for the first race and we move on into the second round. Now unfortunately, the beginning of this race is cut out. And at the beginning of the race, something important happened. We're at Mount Haruna, and while we were approaching the T1 hairpin, I locked my brakes up and flew off the mountain. Low-key kind of embarrassing after winning the first race, but when I rewound and attempted it again, homeboy was waiting for me right after T1. But we'll come back to that in a second. Let's take a look at the execution of these corners here. I saw some comments talking about drifting as opposed to taking traction around a corner. There are benefits to both methods. Now let me just get one fact out the way up front. I don't care what anybody tells you, drifting around a corner will never be faster than four-wheel traction driving around a corner. The benefits to drifting around a corner in Touge is that it makes your car wider. It makes it harder to pass. So right here when he drifts, you see he's covering about 2 lanes worth of traffic. So I wasn't able to make that inside overtake. So if you're the driver following, it does you no good to be drifting around the corners. You need to be traction driving all the way around the corners. That's gonna keep you close enough to exploit a mistake that your opponent makes. Like right here, my opponent goes for a drift in an off-camber corner, which ends up putting him off the track, and he has to desperately go back towards the checkpoint, which allows me to cut back underneath him because I'm four-wheel traction driving through the corner. Now if you're the driver ahead and you're under threat, it might benefit you to do a little four-wheel drift around them corners, basically turning your car into a wall that cannot be passed in the corner. Now for me and mine, I'm going to always opt for traction first. Really, my opponent has provided some great examples of what I want to talk about, but I don't necessarily think that he's doing it intentionally. What I think is going on with his car is that it's just too heavy. And the reason I say that is because anytime he has to do a sharp change of direction, he just loses traction. To contrast, I do like the build on this BMW. It's already light when you get it off the auto show, so I had to do no weight reduction to this thing. But that Skyline is all-wheel drive and it's long, so you already know coming out of the auto show, that thing's gonna have some weight on it, and you're gonna need at least a street or a sport weight reduction if you're gonna run B-Class. This also brings up another topic of discussion that I saw earlier on today in my Discord. People aren't seeing a lot of Skylines in Touge. I can't exactly report the same thing. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of them, but the Discord tends to disagree. And if that's the case, I think maybe the Skyline's just not a great car for Touge because of how long it is. So if you have a really good Touge build for a Skyline, I would love that share code. I would love to try your vehicle out because I would love to have a purist all-wheel drive build, one that's not actually swapped out. I want to challenge myself and I want to have fun. I'm not trying to be the best. It's called Forza Horizon. I'm trying to expand my horizons. I played 2 full Forza Horizons in all-wheel drive, and it's time that I mature my game a little bit. So now we're 4 seconds ahead of the opponent, and I have not forgot the favor he did for me by waiting for me when I flew off the track at the beginning of the race. He didn't have to do that, and if he didn't do it, he would have won this race. And so it's only fair that he takes this win. So we will give that position back up to the best Skyline opponent I've had so far, and we will take it into the tiebreaker round to see whose vehicle is the best. This track is going to really let me demonstrate the strengths of this vehicle. My opponent gets the launch and acceleration that only all-wheel drive seems to be able to deliver. And as far as rear-wheel drive is concerned, I get a fairly decent launch out of my BMW. So he seems to have acceleration and some fairly decent handling, and I have top speed and handling. So when we get to sector 2 of this track, it will most likely be unlike any other time I've driven this track in my all-wheel drive builds. My advantage should be coming from the first sector and the last sector. I am able to get alongside the opponent, but his superior acceleration is pulling him towards the next corner before I can get there. He's going to go wide to try to get the best entrance into the corner, and it kind of catches me off guard that he didn't try to go defensive there. And I do lock my brakes up and slam into a wall because of it. Not his fault. I should have went to the inside. I just did not react quick enough for that. I'll say it a million times. The person in front gets to control the line and be anywhere on the track they want to be. As the following driver, it's my responsibility to get to a position where I can compromise his line and find a way around him safely. So as we come through these couple hairpins, if you take a look at my opponent, you see he starts to slide out on corner exit. I think that's a weight issue. His brakes seem to be able to slow that weight down just fine so he can enter the corners, but the weight is pulling on them springs and causing too much body roll and causing him to break traction on corner exits. So if I was the one driving his car and I was the one to make some changes to it, I would probably go down on weight a little bit and reduce the brake a little bit. Meaning if he's running race brakes right now, put him on sport brakes, and if he's got no rate reduction, put street rate reduction in there. And that might be enough for him to get rid of the problems that he's having right now. Now we are back into my favorite section of the race. This is sector 2, where it's all low to medium speed corners. And this is a move right here I pull over and over again. Every video, this is where my overtake takes place. It works almost every time. You sacrifice a little speed on entry where your opponent has not sacrificed any, so that you can blast out on corner exit where your opponent will be forced to sacrifice their speed. This is chess, not checkers, ladies and gentlemen. A beautiful game of cat and mouse. And with only a handful of corners to go and a full second of time on my opponent, it is now make or break. The only person that can mess this up is myself. So we gotta buckle down and hit these apexes nice and tight and try to make the rest of this race as much of a straight line as we can. Because what I've definitely noticed is that the difference between all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive is that I have to be much more delicate with my throttle inputs to keep that back end from losing control. So the BMW feels nice, and we bagged ourselves a win against the Skyline in its very first time out on the Touge track. And I gotta say, I'm proud of the win, so thank y'all very much for getting me into these rear-wheel drive builds.